June 13th, 1944. 7 days after the D-Day landings, the British 7th Armoured Division, the legendary Desert Rats who had chased Rommel across North Africa, were making their move. A gap had opened in the German lines following a massive American push to the west. The plan was simple and bold. The 22nd Armoured Brigade would exploit this gap, swing around behind the infamous German Panzer Division, and effectively cut them off from the vital city of Caen. By the morning of the 13th, the British advance was looking like a textbook success. The leading elements rolled into the small French farming town of Villers-Bocage. The locals poured into the streets, offering wine, cider, and cheers. It felt like a brief respite for the Desert Rats. They had pushed through enemy territory with virtually no resistance. They went further and pushed straight through the town and secured Point 213, a piece of high ground just to the east. Meanwhile, the rest of the column, a long, tight snake of Cromwell tanks, Stuart light tanks, Sherman Fireflies, and half-tracks, parked nose to tail along the sunken, hedge-lined road of Route Nationale 175. Thinking the area was secure, commanders ordered the men to stand down. Men climbed out their tanks to stretch their legs. The familiar hiss of camp stoves echoed down the column as the British soldiers began brewing their morning tea. They had no idea they had parked directly in front of a monster. Just a few hundred yards away, concealed in the thick Norman Bocage, was the 2nd Company of the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion, and commanding them was SS Obersturmführer Michael Wittmann. Wittmann was already a ghost story on the Eastern Front. A decorated Panzer ace with over 100 tank kills to his name, he was arguably the most lethal armored commander in the German military. And as he watched the British column casually parking along the road to his front, he realized they were attempting a fatal flanking maneuver against his division. He didn't wait for infantry support. Wittmann ordered 3 of his Tigers to hold the British elements on the hill at Point 213. Then, he ordered his own driver to start the engine. He was going into Villers-Bocage alone. The first warning the British had was the deep, guttural roar of a Maybach engine echoing through the trees. A scout in a half-track desperately radioed a warning, but it was too late. Bursting through the heavy foliage onto the main road, the 60-ton Tiger I tank was an absolute nightmare of steel and camouflage. Wittmann immediately targeted the rear of the British force holding the high ground. From point-blank range, a British Cromwell tank was instantly obliterated. Seconds later, a highly valued Sherman Firefly was hit and erupted into flames, completely blocking the road. With the road blocked and the British force split, Wittmann turned his Tiger west, facing the long, parked column of the Rifle Brigade's half-tracks and light tanks. Rolling slowly down the line, Wittmann's Tiger unleashed a devastating barrage of fire, while the tank's 2 MG-34 machine guns chewed through the infantry, desperately trying to scramble into the ditches. The British were caught completely off guard. In a matter of minutes, a dozen troop carriers and light tanks were reduced to smoking, twisted scrap metal. Leaving the burning convoy behind, Wittmann drove his lone Tiger directly into the center of Villers-Bocage. Inside the town, the remaining British tanks of the 4th County of London Yeomanry scrambled to react. Wittmann engaged everything he saw. He destroyed 2 observation post tanks and knocked out several more Cromwells in brutal, point-blank street fighting. A British Sherman Firefly managed to squeeze off 2 desperate shots at the German ace, but the rounds failed to penetrate the thick steel plating. Wittmann had plunged a dagger into the heart of the British advance, but the element of surprise was finally fading. Realizing that British anti-tank guns and infantry were now setting up ambushes in the alleyways, he turned his Tiger around and began to rumble back the way he came. But as he exited the town center, his luck finally ran out. A British 6-pounder anti-tank gun, quickly dragged into position, fired directly into the Tiger's weaker side armor. Wittmann didn't panic. For the next 20 minutes, he used his remaining ammunition, turning his disabled tank into a stationary pillbox, firing his machine guns and cannon at anything that moved until the British were forced to pull back. Finally, out of ammunition, and with the area temporarily clear, Wittmann and his crew abandoned the vehicle, slipping away on foot into the Norman countryside. The entire rampage had lasted less than 15 minutes, but the damage was catastrophic. Single-handedly, Michael Wittmann had destroyed up to 14 tanks, 15 troop transports, and 2 anti-tank guns. The Battle of Villers-Bocage would rage on for another day, drawing in more forces from both sides. Ultimately, the British would be forced to retreat, abandoning their push. The swift, decisive capture of Caen, the linchpin of the Normandy campaign, was delayed by weeks, and it all pivoted on a span of 15 minutes,